we begin this morning, I'd like to set a few frames as we get started about what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it in this particular way. This is perhaps the real beginning of the Master Prac. We've had 3 days of personal genius, and of course that sets all the frames for everything we're doing in terms of mastering NLP in this training for the next nearly 2 weeks. Today, the trainers will be in the other room, and this will be our last day in the other room with the trainers, and then tomorrow I'll be in here with Bob constantly, and we have all the trainers, and some of them are taking the Master Prac here. And the next 3-4 days, we're doing modeling. We're doing strategy work, modeling, resilience, optimism, and everything. And today, Bob will do 2 patterns that we knew for everybody, whether you've been through Master Prac or not. We're going to get a mastery pathway, a representation in your mind about how do you move from incompetence to competence. And we're going to play around with submodalities, and we're going to model that out. We're going to think in terms of modeling and strategy work with the mastery pathway, and we're going to connect that with unimportance, importance, and tie all that together. And Bob's going to spend a lot of time talking about mastery and the pathway of mastery, because we'll do a final kinesthetic mastery walk on the last day. So what you'll do in your minds today, we will do in our bodies on the last day.
One of the first things I'll do is get you set a well-formed outcome model for this training for the rest of the 11 days, so kind of have that in the back of your mind. Stephen will be doing that. Then we'll do a circle of excellence on that, and Alan will be doing a circle of excellence. We're assuming you're all very familiar with it, so we won't spend much time on the content. We just want you to get installed a very good outcome for the training, and also a very good state in the circle of excellence for the training.
So our belief is that to master NLP is to obviously master the content information and the understandings of some of the patterns, but to develop that attitude and that sense of I can move toward mastery, and I will always be moving toward mastery, and I have that sense of how to do that, and I have a pathway in my mind, and each and every day we will end with an induction revisiting that pathway of mastery, so that your pathway in your mind, your emotions, will be a rich pathway. So anytime you think about mastering NLP, you'll know how to go in and get on that pathway, because you've mastered things. You've moved toward competency, and you have unconscious competency about a lot of things. So your neurology knows how to do it. We're just going to make that explicit, make that very overt, and then we're going to walk it and live it and put lots of things on that pathway so that our neurology knows how to respond. So that's what we're going to do here in the next few weeks, because you can always read a book and get more details, more information. But what we really need is that attitude of NLP, that attitude of curiosity and passion and that commitment and that willingness to take a risk and to experiment and to try and to find out what's possible. It's with that attitude that we can invent more and we can expand this field. And so this really begins the whole process for the next 2 weeks of what we're going to do. We have rearranged the chairs so that we're closer and tighter, and when the trainers and coaches leave, if you'll grab your chairs and take it away, that helps to create the sense of community and closeness. And so if you'll kind of watch the chairs, a lot of times we keep adding more chairs and adding more chairs. And so we've asked the coaches to be real conscious about keeping it tight, because that just helps to manage the room and manage ourselves and to really focus on things. The last 3 days we've been on personal genius. And my hope and desire, Bob's hope and desire for that, is that you have been accessing your personal genius. Well, you got 2 more weeks to keep refreshing that. In fact, this next weekend, on Friday and Saturday, or Sunday or Monday, or Saturday,
every day's alike,
or 2 of those days, we're going to do meta-trance. And in that, we will be working on our hypnotic skills, our abilities to go into a trance, to go deeper into trance than we've ever gone before, and to induce other people, not now, Jim, later, and to induce trance in others so that we can assist them in facilitating all the unconscious potentials of the mind. And in doing that, we're going to revisit personal genius. So as a homework assignment for everybody in the Master Prac, you went through personal genius yesterday. I would like you to revisit that in your mind and begin to write an induction. So that by Friday or Saturday or Sunday, whatever day it is, you will have the beginnings of a script for putting yourself into a personal genius state. And during those 2 days, we are going to refine that script. We're going to look at the meta model, the Milton model. We're going to look at hypnotic language patterns. And we are going to create just a ferocious, just a passionate induction for ourselves to go into a genius state. So as you begin to think about, what did you do yesterday? What did you think about whatever that focus absorbed state was, and how you induced yourself into it? There is language and materials in your book, and you can go find that at a later time. But that's what we're going to do with the Meta Trance, so that we can have even more ready access to our personal genius. Our goal is to turn you out as a master practitioner who's a master practitioner at accessing personal genius and many personal genius states. I don't know if anybody would find that useful, but we thought we'd play around. So that's where we're going to go. We want to take a moment just to welcome everybody who's new, and to make sure that we welcome you into this community and this experience that we're going to have in the next 13, 14 days. All the way from the East Coast, we have Kimberly. Kimberly, like Ed, did this process kind of in reverse. She went through trainers first and personal genius first, and now she's catching up with Master Prac. And Kevin will be in here later on today or tomorrow?
4 days.
4 days from now. Well, we'll just anticipate Kevin. And Larry Nolan from, is it North Carolina?
Yeah. Larry's from my county. Today's his birthday. Half a century.
Half a century today.
50-year-old today. All right. He's a Canadian.
We let elders come here.
Larry took my training guest in college and lives in the county.
Let's see. Who else is new? Who else is brand new to us? Well, Thomas, you've only been here a few days, and Thomas comes all the way from South Africa and Nigeria as well. So Thomas is with us in the Master Prac. Anyone else new? Tim?
3 days. You've been a genius.
Yeah, you've been here for 3 days with us at Personal Genius.
In Macassee, Atlanta, Georgia. Dunwoody, Georgia. Speech pathologist.
Speech pathologist.
Not to turn that world upside down.
Yes, he is. Yes, this man is fixing to. He's
Hector, we have a seat for you right up in front.
He's taping people before they meet a neurosemantist and after they meet a neurosemantist. Their speech patterns tend to change. And then he's going to take it to the...
Have I missed anyone who's brand new to coming in today? We may have a couple more coming in. We have several people here who's taken the Master Prac for a second time or a third time, and I think that's significant because they can become resource people for our group here. Dr. Pascal, you've been through it before, haven't you? You haven't?
No.
You just act like you're a Master Prac.
He's just a masterful person.
Well, practicing it every week or every month for 17 years and running a study group, I guess that gives you a little edge.
I've got people in Australia waiting on you to write that article on how to run a study group. Okay, thank you, Pascal.
I don't know anybody who's run an NLP study group for longer than Pascal has in the Washington, D.C. area. I mean, 17 years. I mean, there's a model in there
Somewhere.
or some, and it probably is driven by the person who wants it. And I don't know, but if I was doing it, my attitude would be, more fresh brains.
It's a good learning strategy.
Yeah. But I know a couple of you have been through Master Prac before. Who's been through Master Prac before? Elsewhere. Yeah. Okay, so you've been through it before. Anybody else been through it before? So the next 4 days is really at the heart of NLP. And Bob and I thought again and again about where to put this, and we decided to put it right after Personal Genius. So today, Bob will start with Mastery, and some of the modeling with submodalities. Tomorrow, and some with strategies. Tomorrow we go with modeling with resilience and optimism. So we're going to add those to personal genius. A personal genius having the prerequisites of optimism and resilience to bounce back from anything. And so we're going to be building on that. On the third day, we will do modeling with meta states and some of the meta level modeling and add a little bit more to that. And then the fourth day, a whole day on cultural modeling. So that's what's immediately in front of us. And then I think it's the trance days, and then the meta program days, the mind line days, and the mastery days. So there's a lot coming. I hope everybody has a manual. If not, we'll make some more.
Who does not have a manual?
If you don't, for today, just give it to somebody. And tomorrow, the next day, we'll have some more.
We had enough printed up. Michael sold them. I'll blame him, you. We'll get it for you tomorrow. Beginning tomorrow, all of us will be here, and so this is our last day with the trainer group as such, and so some of the trainers are going to be doing some of their master prac again or whatever for the first time here in this room. So that kind of sets the frames of what we're going to do. Once again, it seems to me that more important than those manuals is to have sensory awareness as to the patterns, the processes, and getting a sense of the structure of what's going on. At the practitioner level, the difference between a practitioner and a master practitioner, as far as I know and as far as I'm concerned, is that at the practitioner level, we learn to play the scales. We learn to play and find the notes and find how the process works. And we do a lot of step-by-step stuff, a lot of procedural stuff, a lot of step after step after step. By the master practitioner level, now we're learning to think in terms of structure and getting out of content so that we can now start playing with it and being much more oriented toward the person we're interacting with than the pattern. So that to become truly a master at it, we have to move beyond procedures. And if your driving meta program is procedures, this may be a challenge. And we've got processes for changing those meta programs because they're just solidified meta states. But as we move to that options, the most important thing is watching and paying attention and asking questions about the structure and then replicating that so that the pattern will fit the person rather than trying to get the person to fit a pattern. When we have that attitude, we say, well, you're not doing it right. Whereas we have the other one, how is your brain working and what do you need so that you can do this and obtain and experience these outcomes? Yeah, and master practitioners really don't pay a whole lot of attention to content. So when you do exercises, you're not telling your life story, you're looking for structure.
So in that sense, the exercises and the small group experiences should go quicker because now we can just say, well, the problem is yellow. All right, when do you do yellow, and how do you do yellow, and how do you know you're doing yellow, and why do you call it yellow? And we look at the structure of it rather than getting into all the yellow. The content makes less and less difference.
Any question? Comment?
So this is a time for an open forum, kind of tying up the last 3 days, or for some of you, the last 11 days.
A few new ones. We need you. If you want to ask a question, please raise your hand so Jim can get a mic to you because we are videotaping. And others are having difficulty hearing if you do not.
So.
And we got 11 packed days coming up, but we have one day off. When's the 4th of July?
Thursday.
Thursday. Break day.
When is
There's a wisecrack. That's what happens when you go to Florida.
Hey, Alan, do they have July 4th in Canada?
Today is Canada Day.
Yeah, today.
This is the national holiday.
Today is Canada's 4th.
That was a trick question. Actually, they do have a July 4th in Canada. They just don't
and so now now that we chased the content of that rabbit,
Any questions, comments?
And this may be a time to think about the last 3 days and learning meta states, learning accessing your personal genius, being able to step in those states, how to do it for yourself, how to facilitate it with somebody else. This might be a good time for the next few minutes. One of the things I find a lot of times with people first going through meta states, because it is a different way of thinking. It is that reflexivity of thinking, as we apply to self, is that it generates a lot of thought and processing at night. And one of the questions a lot of times that happens is asking, have you had some wild dreams, or just tossing and turning and just things being processed through especially as you're being kinder and gentler with yourself and setting frames that it's just an emotion. So I can welcome them, I can accept them, I can appreciate each and every emotion as just an emotion. And when old thoughts come up, memories, it's just representations of what once upon a time happened, and it's not real. The past does not live except as the movie in our mind.
What is mastery? First full paragraph, mastery involves focus, concentration, passion, intention, commitment, and discipline. When we say focus, what does that mean to you, having just come through the Accessing Personal Genius training? Intention. A laser beam. Pardon? Piercing. We'll need you. Let's get you to hold your hand up. I forgot about that. That's my fault. Piercing. Laser beam. Intention. If we're focused, what have we aligned with our intention? Attention. Yeah.
Attention.
Attention. That's right. So when we are focused, our attention is aligned with our intention. In mastery or in genius, there's no substitute for. And focus, how many things are you focusing on usually? Yeah. Now notice the second one, concentration. Not a whole lot of difference there. Concentration. Michael spoke about attention deficit disorder and this kind of thing. And obviously the problem there is they don't know how to concentrate. They don't know how to focus, except on those things they really love, like a video game or something. But a master is always concentrating on that which he or she is mastering. And the third point, we'll talk about passion. Interesting thing that Michael has done with the wealth building workshop, as he studied all the people who built wealth, guess which component is probably more important than anything else? It would seem that the vast majority of people who do not have wealth, who build wealth, are not after wealth. They are doing what they love to do. And it's not about money at all. Just over a period of years of passionately concentrating and focused on that which they love doing, they generate something of value. That other people start seeing that it has value in it, and in that they later begin to build wealth as it starts moving as a product. Passion is of extreme importance in anything. Now, in NLP, it requires a lot of work. You'll leave here with a lot of knowledge, but the passion you take with you to install it and to build upon it will be critical. I've never known anyone who really become great at this stuff that didn't passionately work on it. It just becomes a part of their life in order to maintain states and run their own brain and understand how this processes. The fourth point we mentioned a while ago, intention. By the way, what do you think of that pattern, Accessing Personal Genius? Aligning your attention with your intention. It's as I mentioned during the training just briefly, it's one of the single most critical elements of mental health that I know. I think the two definitions of mental health that I love is, number one, we map out, the map that we have matches what's out there now, not 20, 30 years ago. And the second one would be, if we want to give a second definition of mental health, it's when our attention and our behavior is aligned with our higher intention. That we don't have a bunch of negative frames and stuff in there that blocks us reaching our higher values and our higher goals and our higher beliefs and living it out in practice.
That program.
That works.
Y'all awake? That program brought out to me how when I'm at home and I'm working in that state at my home office desk. And if my young children come in the room, sometimes I'll snap.
Uh-oh.
Because I can't separate, or I could not in the past separate. I couldn't turn it off. So if they came in the room looking for attention, there were times when I would say, like, I'm busy, I'm working. I told you I'm working, right? And I did not like that state. Now I have a science to
That's the genius state.
step out of my
Maybe
cooler
step
that
out
I
of it.
built,
Mm-hmm.
step out of it and leave it intact and serve them better. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I know that when I snapped at them, it didn't do me any well. Didn't do me any well. How was that for English? Didn't do me well, didn't do them well either. So it was a gift now. It's
You
a
work
gift
at
to
home
get it now.
You have a home office.
Yeah.
Yeah, work at home. Okay.
Thank God I got it now when they're young. So I can
Yeah.
stop doing that and do something
okay,
better.
Yeah, that's the genius state where you come out. Okay. Next to last, commitment. Commitment. How much are you committed to mastering this? Obviously, spending your money to come here. Some of you from far away. You mean business. You mean business. And we want to encourage you to be committed all through it and after you leave here. And the last one, discipline. Well, Jim, describe discipline. What's discipline to you?
This is the scary thought. Discipline to me is focusing my attention where my intentions are
Focusing your attention where your attentions are.
and my behavior.
Yeah. By the way, the word discipline has a background of disciple, and it's a learner. And someone open to learning. Yeah, discipline. Someone, I think a good definition of discipline, run your own brain. What do you think? Huh? Yeah, okay. Microphone. Yeah, I think that's a good definition of it.
Well, I think idea of it, relating it to disciple is a good segue to what I was going to say. That it's sort of like a religion. The definition of religion, something you do religiously, you would do every day, like brushing your teeth. So if you focus on doing something that you discipline yourself by doing it regularly.
Regularly. Yeah.
You don't do it sporadically.
Yeah, regularly. So that's what running your own brain's all about. Now, if you flip over on the next page, well, down at the bottom of page 11, excuse me. This comes up. Michael got this from George Leonard's book, Mastery. Any of you ever seen this before? It's a neat it's a neat little model about the way we function in the world. He's got it narrowed down to the way four people go about doing mastery. 4 different types of people. The dabblers, they get into one thing after another and develop a little bit of skill, get bored and drop it and move to the next one. You know anybody like that? Do one little thing, then another little thing, and another little thing. Never get good at anything. Dabble in this, and dabble in that, and dabble in the other. And then the next one's the hackers. These people are those who get to a certain level, they're content there, and they sit there. And they never rise above that level. And they only will move to the next level if they have to. The area that I come from, we have a lot of manufacturing. Well, things are changing. Things are changing rapidly in our society. And people who just get good enough at one task to make a living, get a paycheck, and then all of a sudden that goes overseas. So, it's gone. The work is gone. And so to survive, they have to have a new skill. And that's the only time a hacker will do it, is when they absolutely have to. They have to. Now the compulsive, by definition, these people reach a certain level and become uncomfortable with that level of performance, and then they push harder and harder and harder and harder, trying to improve themselves, and they end up burned out. I'm not satisfied with myself here, and I've got to do better, got to do better, got to do better, got to do better. By the way, that kind of behavior's got stuff behind it. Now, you can bet on that. That kind of behavior's got some stuff behind it, some problem frames behind it. But then here are the masters. These people will get to a certain level. They'll work till they get to a certain level, and then they will master that level. You know? And only when they have mastered that level will they begin studying and learning to master the next level. And they are perfectly contented staying on that level until they have it down well enough, they know they're mastered it, and they know when they've mastered it, then they'll move to the next level. These are the masters. Now let's apply that to learning neuro-linguistics, neurosemantics. You're getting a lot of information, aren't you? You're going to be getting a lot more. I mean, for the next few days, we're going to be studying trance induction. We're going to be studying meta programs, and we'll be going through 51 of them. And we're going to be going through mind lines, and we'll be going through 26 of them. You've come to accessing personal genius. How many of you have met NLP here? We've got several that's been with us all along. Well, yeah, several that's been here all along, and that's a lot of information. Okay, so how are you going to learn it? How are you going to get it installed? You know, like eating an elephant, one bite at a time. That represents a level. When I've got that bite chewed up and swallowed, then I'll go to the next bite. You know, focus on, you know, in the area of importance, the material that suits you, that's pleasing to you, and stay at that level a few days or a few weeks, however long it takes you to absorb it, and then go to the next level. And really focus. You know, you may want to focus on meta programs, spend a few months on meta programs. And really, I mean a few months, you know. And spend a few days on one, a few days on another, and a few days on another, etc. When you got that down mastered and you can recognize it, you can hear it, and you can see it, then move to the next level. If you go home, I got to get all this stuff now, I got to get all now. That's compulsive, you know. That's not, you'll burn out. I tell you what, you'll end up doing, you'll end up saying, I can't learn this stuff, and then on the shelf it'll go in and draw dust. Take it one level at a time, and when you learn it, you move to the next. Okay, we're indebted to. That looks a little crowded. I tried to put that on a PowerPoint. Let's look at this. Sally Ann Cotton in Sydney, Australia, last year did this on the compulsive masters, dabblers, and hackers. By the way, this is an excellent model for corporations. And my wife is a human resource consultant, Travelers Insurance. She has to do a lot of traveling, a lot of training. And in doing training at a lot of corporate level, you have to give them chunks, you know, kind of small chunks. You can't give them 51 meta programs. That won't work too good. So here's a good little model for that kind of a situation. Compulsive operates off the modal operator of have to. Got to, have to. Whereas a dabbler, try to, kind of want to. A hacker, should, I need to. But a master, get to, want to, can. Notice how you move modal operators of impossibility and necessity on up into possibility at the master level. Remember, modal operators define the boundaries of our belief system. Modal operators define the boundary of our belief systems, and they will let us know where a person's at. The orientation of a compulsive is to prove self to be somebody. You know, if I work hard enough, if I do good enough, people love me. If I work hard enough, do good enough, I'll think accomplish enough, I'll think good enough of myself. That's how come I'm saying the compulsive have problem frames driving them. Okay, the dabbler will be oriented towards searching for someone to make them feel good. Dabblers are always looking for somebody to make them feel good. A hacker pushed to competence when they have need to. They need pressure. Hackers need a lot of management. You got to stay behind them all the time. The master to express self and skill to enjoy and contribute. A master is not a human doing. A master is a human being. A master is not a human doing. A master is a human being. The style of a compulsive, pressure-driven, no balance. Style of a dabbler, fragmented and shallow. Style of a hacker, skill, they manage by crises. Style of a master, balance, healthy, Kaizen. Kaizen, continuously improving. Now look, by the way, Sally Ann, the lady who did this, is a very successful business consultant. She has her own business, her and her husband. They're very successful. I had dinner in their home last month, 2 months ago now. Very, very successful. And she said this on the quadrant, this runs from low commitment, vision, focus to high commitment, vision, and focus. The dabblers and the hackers are very low in commitment, vision, and focus. But notice a compulsive is highly focused, highly committed to the point of being sick. About patience, compulsive and dabblers are impatient. Masters and hacker have some patience. A master will have a lot of patience. A master will not move to the next level until they've mastered where they are. Sally did that not this year, but last year. I thought that was a fine piece of work. Any questions or statements on that? Okay, let's look at the pathway to mastery on page 13. Again, we're just setting some frames up this morning about, some content things on mastery. The pathway to mastery. First thing, we've got to get instructions. A master doesn't want to reinvent the wheel. A master doesn't have time to reinvent the wheel. A master has no problems going to the library or the internet to get information. And I want to say a master will give credit where credit is due. If they're an ethical master, and I don't think you can be a master without being ethical. They study, they dig, and they advance the subject matter. A master practices. Probably one of the most important things about learning NLP is practicing. Pascal here, had that study group going for 17 years. He'd get up here and teach us. Of course, I have an idea of that. He's probably a lot better than me because he's been at it for so long. Practice, practice, practice. Repetition, repetition, repetition. There is no other way to get it in our muscle in most cases. And this information requires work. Surrendering to practice. We suspend, notice what Michael has you, we suspend our disbeliefs, we suspend our doubts, and we surrender to practice. I've been really impressed with these people who stutter. What about you? Inspiration. Now let's look. Right, we've had right here this week, or in the last few days, and we also had the same thing out in Sydney. And a very good example of a master. These people, I had an email from Europe today. Stephen, and I said him Stephen and Tim's name. It'll probably be September, October before I can get to it. So you may be hearing somebody. Okay. I had an email today about wanting to overcome stuttering. These people have spent their life stuttering with that handicap. And now they found some hope. Now let's look. Let's go back. Now, Linda and Tim, you tell me if I'm wrong. They're focused on overcoming their stuttering. Focused on the material in neurosomatics and the techniques and state management skills that will enable them to overcome it. They're concentrated, fully concentrated on it. Every spare minute, and you all correct me if I'm wrong, every spare minute that they have, they're concentrating on overcoming the stuttering habit. They have a passion, driven with their passion to overcome it. Their intent is to become fluent, and their attention and behavior is to do that, fulfill that intention of overcoming. They're committed. We've had a few, one session. Most of them, it's a few months. They're disciplined. That's mastery. That's how come they're obtaining fluency. It's because they set a frame. I'm going to master it. I'm going to master it. And they do what it takes. Got big enough why, Tony says. You better believe it. Yeah. You better believe it. Big enough why. Now, Michael was talking yesterday about you have a strong enough why, you do about anything. I'll forget who he quoted on that. Reason. Rolla May? Yeah. Motivation. Leverage and pain. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Get the microphone there, Tim, if you would. I'll try to repeat. Yeah. Okay. Let's go back. So on page 13. It's incorrect. Page 13. So when we get instructions, see now notice that with the people who stutter, they're learning new material. They're going for it. And by the way, I want to tell you something. In order to overcome stuttering, they have to suspend old beliefs. They have to suspend old beliefs that they've been taught that you never overcome stuttering. Linda recommended some books for me, and I've been reading them, and I read in there where people say that, once you're in it, you don't ever overcome it. You never completely overcome it. These are authorities. But they suspend those beliefs. They open up their mind, they get new instruction, and they practice, and they surrender to that practice until they overcome it. It's like I told LaRue yesterday after class. I said, LaRue, you got up there, you made the decision to get up there, and you had all day long to know you were going to get up there to build up anticipatory anxiety. And you got up there, and you did it. And there are a whole lot of people out there who do not have a speech impediment that would have never gotten up there. That's mastery. That's what it's all about. Intention. Getting up there and making it happen. Number 5, they push the edge. They push the edge. NLPers in the United States aren't so highly respected in many quarters, but NLPers are curious. They want to know how things work. Talk a little bit about that later on. We talk about elicitation skill. They're really curious. And they don't care about, what the authority says or what can or can't be done. They'll push the edge. They're pioneers. Now sometimes the general gets so far ahead of the troops that the troops mistake him for the enemy and shoot at him. But they don't care. They don't care. They push the edge. They keep going. And they catch the spirit of the field. Now, Jim, get the microphone ready. I want to find out what do you think the spirit of the field? I mean, some of you have been in neurosemantics some while, and I welcome the coaches to chime in here.
I'm not going to say this is sum it up completely, but I see one aspect of it as being confrontational.
Confrontational?
Yeah, the forefathers.
Meaning of that. What do you mean by that? That could be a negative spirit.
Well, they were willing to challenge the status quo in the field.
I'll take that. Yeah. Okay.
Immense curiosity.
Immense curiosity. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Michael's talked a lot about pure NLP and how, to those of you who are not here, we run into an organization that calls it pure NLP. That's NLP before 1985 in many instances. That goes against the spirit of NLP. The spirit of NLP, as Mr. Banner defined it, and I agree with it wholeheartedly, is that it's an attitude of curiosity and experimentation. An attitude of curiosity and experimentation. For many years I thought, and I still may be wrong, but I thought that in some of the European countries they're having licensure and stuff, and that's okay. But I thought, well, we need to get NLP recognized. We need to get the state legislatures to recognize that NLP is a viable form of psychotherapy, and we can have licensures, and et cetera, et cetera. And then later on, working with Michael and Robert Diltz and some, I got thinking, well, maybe there's a danger in that we codify it and we box it in. This is NLP, and all licensed practitioner has to do it this way. And that's not the spirit of NLP. However, if you could put it in that code that it can, advance and et cetera, that's no problem. But there is a a danger in saying, this is neurosemantics. This is NLP. That's not how come I got NLP. In NLP. You know, back to, I'm not good. I'm a learner. I love to learn, and I love to advance stuff, and I just absolutely refuse to do that. And to me, a master, I'm not talking about being satisfied with self. I'm talking about being satisfied with knowledge and where things are. In my opinion, a master is not satisfied. Is never satisfied. That I have obtained everything there is and I know everything there is to know. I don't believe that's a master.
Oh, so there's nothing wrong with me for thinking that way.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Y'all understand what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say? If this is about curiosity and experimentation, you can't say 6-step reframe. That's it. You can't stay NLP up to a certain day. That's it. If what we're doing is about curiosity and experimentation and advancing the betterment of mankind, and I've been exposed this since I've been here to Deb, the chiropractor, and David Musnick, the medical doctor, and they've helped me. Some information that I didn't know existed. If I'd been closed-minded, I would not have received help. Because they're kind of outside. Dr. David is kind of outside mainstream Western medicine. He studied other forms of treatment, and if he'd said this is it, this is medicine, then I wouldn't have gotten that help, and others have received help from. And it's the same way in NLP. Let's don't box it in. Neurosemantics, and what Michael I want to do with neurosemantics, is to really access the genius of your brain. Because who knows where you're going to go with it and where you're going to take it. Now there's one thing we do, we want it to be founded pretty firmly in the cognitive sciences. We're not interested in going way out on tangents and stuff that cannot be verified. We want that.
I would also like to share it's the way, the spirit is also the way it's used. And I have run into some people who use these techniques and these mind lines to put people down, to put them into binds, and the way it's used, it's a way of life, and with your intention for learning, that when every person that you meet and greet during life, if you bring it with you, you can connect in new ways. And I've just met some people who have taken these skills and used them in ways that are unsavory, to say the very least.
Yeah. But obviously we don't want that, thank you, Tim. And we try to take care of that kind of thing right quick. Quietly in the background, that's the kind of thing that's taken care of.
Okay, I've got it now. The spirit of NLP is a process, not a product. It's a process of growth, or a growth process.
It's a process, not a product. That's good. That's good. That's good. Yeah, very good. Okay. Let's move on a little bit. Now, on page 14, we won't do it, but there's a little pattern there, and I just wanted you to look up at the top. I'm assuming everyone here knows how to think of a state and access it and amplify it. I'm assuming everybody knows how to do that really well. Yeah. At the top there, make a list of those personal states of excellence that enable you to be at your best when working with and mastering NLP. Would you just take, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes, and write down some states that you believe will assist you in learning and mastering the subject matter that we will be having the next several days. State of listening, 16, 17. if we could use one word to define NLP, it would be modeling, correct? And that's what the next 4 days are about. Well, let's just go ahead and say, in modeling, meta programs are extremely important. So we got 4 days of basic modeling, but let's put in there the meta programs. I'm all the time about modeling pathology. You know, I do quite a bit of psychotherapy. So, I mean, you can't help a person if you can't find out how they're doing what they're doing. You got to find out how they're doing what they're doing, and then teach them how to do something else. That's the name of the game. So I'm constantly doing that, and meta programs are the utmost importance. So meta programs will be a major chunk also on your modeling skill. By the way, a little side note on the neurosemantic modeling next year. We'll do the master track, as you know, like the regular master track here, but Michael he'll be going out for 4 days while I'm doing this section, the next 4 days. He'll be pulling those of you who want neurosemantics modeling. So what I'd highly recommend, those of you, as we go through the modeling the next 4 days, and then get into meta programs, and if that's your thing, you really like it, make absolutely sure you sign up for the neurosemantics modeling training next year, because that's taking modeling to new levels, literally. Okay, you're getting to far more information on that. So I would little advertisement there. Okay, state elicitation, page 16. At the top of your page there in eliciting states, there are 2 ways to elicit states. We did it in Meta-NLP, and we also did it in Accessing Personal Genius. You can remember a time when. Now, in order to model a person, whether I'm modeling a pathology in therapy, or you're modeling someone in the corporation or in the corporate world who is a superb manager, or you are modeling someone in sports who plays golf really well. Wouldn't you love to model some of these great golfers? Huh? Or a great baseball hitter, something like that? It doesn't make any difference who you're modeling, what skill you're modeling. They have to be in the state that you're modeling. You gotta get them in state, and that's what this section here is all about. They have to be in state. That's the best way. Now, imagination, they can imagine having it, but in modeling expertise, get them in the specific state, really in it, that you want to model. Like if we're modeling a baseball player and we're modeling when he hits. I mean, he would have to literally be there, You'd physically put him there. And have him remember a time when he hit perfectly. And associate him back in that. I prefer remember a time when, because I think you get much purer and cleaner states than imagination. But sometimes you have no other choice but get imagination, especially when you're going for resources. But in most modeling, we're going to go for a specific behavior that somebody does very, very well. And that is to think about a time when. Everybody, I think that's basic NLP. Now then, let's look at these 7 items on page 16, 17. So this is state elicitation skills. It's critical. Critical. Number 1, get into your own best resourceful state for eliciting. Now, out of that list that you just made, which one is the best state for you to list in? To elicit. Michael's got some listed there. Last sentence. Next to last sentence. I apologize to you who do not have a manual. You will have one tomorrow, hopefully. Hopefully. My apologies. Relax and at ease. Fun, playful, mischievous, underline, curious, circle it. I think that is key. How does that person do that? If you don't have that attitude of absolute, utter amazement at how they do that, then you're not going to be a good modeler. I mean, if you're just there because your job tells you to do it, you might as well be working a mathematical formula. You know, you're going to be like a robot. Real curiosity. And I apologize for the therapy. That's my world, so that's where my examples come from. So I want to frame that. Okay. Okay. Al, excuse me, Stephen.
One of the things that I think, have you ever watched children when they're discovering something new that they've never seen before? You know that absolutely magical sort of awe. They kind of they kind of fiddle with it and they kind of look at it. I mean, my granddaughters live out in the country. 2 of them live out in the country, and they find a new bug or they see something new, and they're just sort of standing there in total amazement and awe and wondering how it works. I have no idea what's going on in their little heads, but it's if you can get into that state, you've got so much freedom to be able to operate, and that is really the masterful state of curiosity, to be able to elicit whatever the model is.
No. Yeah. Good. Pascal. Pascal, by the way, is a PhD in physics, so we've got a real resource here.
I think you also have to be able to deal with the unknown.
Be able to deal with the unknown.
Be comfortable with the unknown.
Be comfortable with it. That's good.
So, and what critical to that is being able to trust yourself.
Being able to trust yourself.
That no matter what happens.
Hey, that's good things you may want to write down. Be comfortable with the unknown. Be able to trust yourself. Great. Great.
And have an amazing amount of flexibility.
Yeah, there's a good state. Flexibility. Tim and Linda, if I embarrass y'all talking about stuttering, tell me to shut up. But it makes for a good example. That makes for an excellent example to illustrate what we're doing here. It amazes me that how a person can, it's really amazing, speak fluent when they're by themselves or when they're speaking to their pets or something, and then it's just in certain context, stutter. Well, how do you do that, So to do that, they have to be in, and I'm working on modeling stuttering. Then next I'm going to work on what I'm moving into now is modeling like Tim and Linda who have overcome stuttering. So model stuttering. Now I want to model, we're well on the way to modeling stuttering, but now I want to model how Linda and Tim and their differences, how they have moved from stuttering to fluency. And that's fascinating, That's fascinating.
If we still had the beliefs and frames about stuttering that we used to have, then we may be saying, please don't talk about it, right, Linda? But because we've come full circle, it's like, let's talk about it. Because it is a great example.
It is.
Of mind to muscle
superb.
And all the things that follow.
Yeah, it's a superb. So see what I'm doing with Linda and Tim and some others is they are my subjects. Rats. Yeah. See here, they have done it. They've done it. Why? How did they do it? And Don's got a great story. I mean, Don just in studying NLP on his own. Larry can tell you. Remember Lori McCarley this past year and Sean McCarn? You were not in those classes, were you? Okay. I had 2 this past year and one 2 years ago in my classes at Gaston College. I didn't even know they were working on it. They overcame stuttering. So I want to go talk to them. They just took what they were learning in NLP, and Don done it and come a long ways in overcoming stuttering. How do they do this? And that's fascinating. Well, that's curiosity. That's curiosity. And by the way, I want to tell you something that'll shut you down right quick. If you frame yourself, well, I can't figure out how that person did that, you've lost it.
Another wonderful thing is when you stop and think about it, some of you may believe that Bob fixed them.
No.
Bob knows better.
No. Oh, no. Don't fix nobody.
Bob knows
Can't
better.
Fix Bob.
I understand that one really well. Always a work in progress.
I had a T-shirt years ago. It said on the back, "Still under construction." I'm still looking for another T-shirt like that. Still under construction.
He didn't fix my brain. I've kind of fixed it myself utilizing this, but he walked me through it. And so I'm anchored to him.
Oh, Lord.
So whoever helps somebody else, I'm sure it'll be anchored to them too.
Hey, by the way, that's one of the thrills. See, this is what this technology allows you to do. You with me? Now, you can, we're using stuttering as an example, but you can go in your management in your workplace or in sports or wherever, and you can find people who do well, and you find out how they do it, and then there's somebody out there that wants it so bad. They want to improve their lives. They want to increase their income level. They want to help their families more. And then you can take this technology and you can find out how others do it, and then you can teach them and you can coach them into improving their lives. And obviously you're improving yours. By the way, there's just something about people who go through neurosemantics training. Their income starts increasing. Tim? It happens a lot. It happens a lot. So let's go to number 2. Use all of your output channels when enlisting. We call that uptime. Uptime. Do not just say the word like confident, relaxed, powerful, etc., but speak and sound like it. Whatever state that you are wanting to elicit, you be in that state yourself. Whatever state you want to elicit, you be in that state. Your tonality, your gestures, your facial expressions, your breathing, everything is to demonstrate that state. Because you've got to have rapport with the person whom you're modeling. If you don't have rapport, you're not modeling. When you have rapport with a person and you are eliciting a state, you're in that state. If you get out of that state and if you're rapport with them, guess what happens? They're going to follow you out of their state to the state that you went into if you have rapport. And in order to model, you got to have rapport. You know those saying, if you want to put somebody in trance, build rapport and go in trance yourself. That's simple. If I want to get a client in trance, I just... Uptime, Bob. Did you all detect something? You know, you don't put somebody in trance, go in trance, get rapport first, go in trance. In modeling, we build rapport, and then whatever state we want to access in them, we put that state on ourselves. And we have to stay in it. It's work. Hey, this is hard work. Got a hand up here. You really got to concentrate. You got to be in uptime. You don't have time for your mind to go anywhere. You got to focus and be concentrated.
Michael does a beautiful job of this. You've ever watched him up here working with somebody?
Oh yeah, hell yeah, yeah. This is basic NLP. Basic NLP, taking one level out. Let's move on. Number 3, provide a menu list of choices that assist the elicitation. A person, when you're listing a state, say you're listing a baseball player. I mean, you could talk about other ball players who do the same thing very well, and describe watching them do it. You're listing someone who does a superb job management, and you could use stories or choices to different states, suggestions to assist them in going in state. I love stories. I love metaphors and stories. I think my personal opinion is metaphors are the most powerful form of communication known to man. I really believe that. Yeah, I really believe that. And I want to get better. That's one of my goals, is to get better and better and better in telling stories. Metaphor. Okay, number 4. Create the context for the person to go inside and access this neuro-linguistic information. Now, when we're modeling a person, they are obviously having to go inside to find out how they do it. So they're going internal. They're going in time. We stay up. They're doing that. And as they go inside, then, our language is going to change. Our tonality is going to change. And by the way, lots of times when people go inside, they go into trance. Their predicates, their representational system will shift. Also, you'll find major shifts in modal operators. Listen carefully. When a person goes inside, they're going into trance, they will be shift in language and the type of modal operators they use. There'll be a shift in, lots of times in meta programs, many times there'll be a shift in the representational language they use. There will be a shift. There will be a change. And a good modeler, like a good NLPer, just goes right with them. Just goes right with them. And your tonality and your intonation and everything will pace theirs exactly. In the indent there on the number 4, if you get a lot of I don't knows, you're not commanding enough. You hear it. I'm sure you've heard it during your training. You ask a person something and say, I don't know. I don't know. And then when we give a command, our voice, our eyebrows, our tone, etc. goes down. Just give yourself permission to go inside and allow that part of you to tell you exactly what you need now. And if you do not know, just guess. Because when a person guesses, guess where that comes from. Yeah. Don't let them get by with this, I don't know. It's your job as a modeler to lead them to find out.
Another thing that's useful is sometimes to say and go with the first thing that comes to your mind, instead of letting them metastate it to death. Get the initial information.
There you go. Questions. When you question, your intonation goes up. That's again, we learn this in NLP. Number 5, use presuppositional questions and statements to make the elicitation and accessing easy. Lots of time we say, can you? Hey, if you say can you, guess what they might say? Just say do it. Hey, you got rapport. You already have the permission of the person. You got rapport. As you go inside, accessing that part of you that is so good at telling your arms and hands and shoulders and body posture exactly how to hit that ball. Ask that part, what do you do in order to hit that ball? As that ball comes out of that pitcher's hand, or even before, what do you see from the pitcher? That lets you know, and this would be a series of questions, that lets you know where that ball will liable to come. And as that ball is coming your way, notice what you do with that ball. Do you slow it down and make that ball bigger, or what do you do in order to really see that ball? And just one run after another. What are you doing? What are you doing then now? We're going to be doing strategy, and we did that some in Meta NLP. What'd you do just then? Your eyes went up here. What happened? I saw this. What'd you do? Pow, pow, pow. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, if I were to change modalities, if I were to change from one compartment to another and doing NLP, sports fascinates me in a way, how people do that. And so there's a big field in that. Okay, number 6, help the person sort things out. Yeah, when does it start, where, what, color, etc. We really have to, in eliciting, this is, in Meta NLP we listed a pattern, and the person said, just do it, and the trigger, and they just did it. Well, there was a whole lot in between. That's strategy elicitation. And you got to ask a lot of questions. Person has no idea, what's between the stimulus and the response. What's between the first T and the last E on the tote model. You'll get a refresher course in tote model. Okay.
This is when you big chunkers have to go into detail.
Big chunkers got to go to detail. Yep. And we'll get into elicitation. We'll more about it, but just what I like to say is, as you are modeling a person and eliciting, you take what they say and you put it in your head. And have you got enough information? Do you have enough information to know that these logical steps will produce that behavior? and if you don't. Right, number 7, give the person enough time to process. Give the person enough time to process. See, when you're eliciting, and like a person said, for a task, I see that and I just do it. I see that needs to be done, I just do it. Well, in between the stimulus, the response, in between the first test and the last exit, there's a whole series of representational steps and meta-level structures. It's our job as modelers to find out what's happening from the first T to the last E. Now, they do this just like that. Now, in order to get them, we've got to associate them in there. We have to give them time to process. And you're going to be doing a lot of back and forth. A whole lot of back and forth. I saw your eye go up here, or I saw your eye go up here, or you went down here. What did you just then? What did you do before that? Well, what they're doing the behavior. They're back and forth between stimulus response. And then you start chunking them in the middle, and they're having to go back and reaccess. You say, well, what you do before then? Well, in order to get before then, they've got to access where they just were. And you say, okay, here you went inside and you looked like you went down there. Well, I said so. So you went inside and you talked to yourself. What'd you do before that? Well, they're going to have to go back inside, talk to themselves, and then go back. Some people, her sequence, will have to go back to the first stimulus and come forward to there. So this you got to be very patient. And obviously the person you're modeling has to be really patient, because they're doing all this, Pascal and Omar, they're doing all this internal stuff, and it's a challenge.
So what you're talking about is the scope of modeling is a very small piece of it, because a person has a skill like coaching.
Yeah.
You're talking about one little small piece of their strategy.
Yeah, and there's going to be a whole lot of strategies.
There's going to be a whole lot of them. So when
Yeah.
you go down to the depth, you're going down at some time, but at one time you have to be at the upper level
Yeah.
to figure out what the pieces are.
Yeah.
And then you have to go down at
That's right.
that last level right now.
That's right. It's a challenge. But you can do it. We got the tools to do it. We can get down to representational sequencing. We can get all the meta-level structures. I say all. You don't. So a lot of times you don't have to get all to get enough to know how to do it.
Wouldn't it be easy if you put the person in the context where the action occurs?
Yeah, you have to. That's what we mean by associating. Remember a time when.
No, I mean, if I am going to model public speaking, to put the person.
Oh, actually, in the context of doing it.
Yes.
Like if a baseball bat, you take him out on the ball field.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah, everything. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be fantastic. Yeah, sure. Anybody here ever done any sports modeling or anything? Then, John. No, that's okay. You have one? Okay.
No, I just had a question about a word that Pascal used, and I've had a little bit of confusion going on. And when he said the word skill, that made so much more sense to me. We're talking about eliciting states, and I think I have a different definition of a state and eliciting a skill.
Here we're primarily listing skill, so if you kind of frame it skill, a skill, stuttering is a skill. We look at any behavior as a skill, and it's just not an unuseful one. Yeah, so it's a skill. How a person produces a particular behavior, which is a skill. Yeah.
Wyatt Woodsmall and Dick Graves modeled Olympic divers for the Olympic team.
They did.
They watched the divers, and they did.
Oh yeah.
This strategy elicitation in depth.
And that's massive. That's massive. To help. Gary, okay. That is massive to do something like that. Okay. Stephen, then Omar.
When I was doing my master practitioner, I was a subject for a modeling of my ability to learn languages, and it was fascinating. I had no idea how I did it, and it was really fascinating to be the subject and learn, the strategies that I use for learning languages, because I have a great facility, I have a great facility for learning them, and it was really interesting to see.
Yeah.
I did at the same time during my master practitioner, I modeled a world-class woman roar, and she's I guess she's 61 or 62 years old now, and then we installed it in a young woman who had just come to the University of Washington to see her performance change. It was really amazing. So we did both of those.
I have a question for Stephen. Did that, in fact, once you knew your strategy, enhance your strategy in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, now I speak English.
He hadn't got to hillbilly yet. Yeah.
One of the things that you can do to encourage and entice an expert to offer you his strategy, because remember, he may or may not initially have a desire to do so, is that you can offer him ways to enhance the efficiency of his strategy. Because most of us, even if we're good at something, have parts to our strategy which aren't particularly useful. So that's one of the things that as a modeler you have to offer that the expert might want.
Russ?
So it sounds like you're creating a desire.
Creating desire?
Right.
Yeah.
And it, help me out here, but it's almost like you're trying to determine the gestalt.
Yeah. Well,
so you're actually picking the chain.
Yeah, there'll be a lot, a lot like Pascal was talking about the diving thing. Yeah, you're talking about a huge amount of information. Yeah. Omar.
What would be then the difference between a strategy and a state?
Strategy takes you into state.
So a state would be an unpacked strategy? Unpack it?
I think that would be a good definition. I may be wrong, but I believe that would be a good definition. State, we go when you listed named all those states. In order to get from one state to another, there is a strategy. Correct? You're gonna be sequencing representational systems, and you're going to be creating meta levels in order to move you out of one and into another.
Another way to frame it is that you can sequence a set of states and create a strategy. That a strategy is a series of states.
Yeah, and so now notice how what we're talking about here, what we're talking now. So we're talking about going from one state to another state, and there'll be a strategy from going from one state to another state. But then you're going to other states. You're and it's very complex. So we're talking about requiring highly skilled people to be able to elicit this. So but we got the tools to do it, and that's what this training is all about.
And it goes in two directions too. It goes in the sequence, and it also goes to the meta levels. So that's the part that makes it a little confusing. It's not just about states. There's also the meta level frames that set the part that makes the map.
I do this when I watch a little child stutter. I'll see a kid who's not even 3 years old, maybe 4 years old, and I will watch them create the stuttering state. And there's a strategy, a loop they go into, and I'll sit and observe it, and then I'll break it.
There you go.
And the parents marvel at how quickly I can say, this is exactly what they do. They're like, wow, that really is what they do each time they stutter. Yeah. And just talking about it just kind of dawned on me. That's exactly what I do.
Alan?
I concur, because I use the same strategies with kids and adults with ADD. Unpack their strategy and then play it back to them so they can understand what's happening. Jim brought up a very good point. I do modeling in the corporate world a lot of times when I'm working in the corporate field. And it's very critical that you elicit what's in it for that person and keep playing it back.
That's a good point.
Because if you don't, and you're dealing with a big chunker instead of a detailed person, it gets very uncomfortable for them and you start to lose rapport very quickly. So they have to have that frame solidly in place.
Yeah.
Because you go to a creative director in an advertising agency that you're going to model, and he's all for it at first. Big chunk guy. Very quickly, if you don't maintain what's in it for him and those rapport, you've lost him. Because he starts to get frustrated. So it's a critical piece.
I also model when I'm working with health issues, specific health issues. No two people do a specific, quote, disease or illness the same way. So I always come to it like, I don't know. How do you do chronic fatigue syndrome? What goes on for you when you have fibromyalgia or migraines or whatever it is. I worked with a young woman who was bipolar, and I had some idea what it was. I called Bobby and talked to him a little bit. I talked to Rhea a little bit about it just to get sort of an overall framework. And then I said, really what I did is I just cast it all aside, and I said, you're real good at this. How do you do it? And really show me, explain to me how walk you through how to do it.
Have others? You?
This is an area of fascination for me, too, because my mom used to do asthma really good, and as soon as we reframed it from, how do you do that?
Yeah,
can we do something different?
Yeah.
It was amazing how quickly.
Yeah. See, again, basic practitioner level stuff, the brain doesn't care. The brain doesn't care. But in order to move people forward, we've got to find out what they're doing and how to do it better. And that's what modeling is all about. In NLP model, Pearls and Satir and Erickson to start with. We're modeling more and more. So what we want to do is to take this knowledge and in whatever field, whatever interest level you have, wherever your interest level lies, is to take it, because it doesn't make any difference. It does not make any difference what the skill is that you're modeling. To determine and to elicit the strategy and the structure of their behavior, you have to, these tools will apply. It makes no difference. On your way, Elisa? Yeah. Bye-bye. Have a good trip. Bye.
Have fun. Thank you.
Bye.
Play with your brain.
Yes. Russ, you got a question?
Back to what I said earlier on desire, it occurred to me that somebody that you were trying to elicit had to be willing to allow that to occur. And you have to get agreement with that person and, okay, we're going to do this.
Yeah, oh sure. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll be doing, as Michael will be in here tomorrow, and as we go more into strategy work, we'll go further into what we're talking about here now, much further into it. So let's see. We want to do the well-formed outcome model, then the circle of excellence. Do you need a break now? Yeah. Okay. I'll see you in 15 minutes.
Obviously, when you're working on a state, it's going to be a positive state. It's going to be an uptime state. But you want it to make sure that it's stated positively. And when you state that outcome, you want to compare it to where your current state is as to where your desired state is going to be. When you want it, where you want it, and what are you going towards. So you want to keep all of those frames in mind as you state it positively. You want the outcome to be sensory based. You want to be aware of what you see, what you hear, what you feel, perhaps even what you taste and smell. But the primary ones are, see, hear, and feel. If there's something you need to do to get into those states, do you need to talk to yourself? Do you need to prep yourself in some kind of way? Do you need to make some kind of a body movement? Be careful that your eyes aren't bigger than your stomach. Okay, the state that you want, the Superman state that you want to get to, or Superwoman state that you want to get to, isn't more than you can swallow. Okay. Oops, missing a page. But anyway, make it compelling. There's got to be a reason for it. You want to drive that. You want to drive that reason. So you want to make it compelling. You want it to be an attractor. There want to be some value to you. And that can either be as an attractor or a repeller, if you're, depending upon your particular meta program. If you move away from, then you want it to propel you away. It's a repellent kind of thing. If you're moved towards, if your meta programs are moved towards, then build up the drivers to make it compelling. You want to run an ecology check on it, and the ecology is critically important to make sure that it works in that particular situation for you, and particularly if you're in an elicitation, that it's also going to work for the other person. So or persons, you take a case like Alan's where he works in a corporate environment, and I do the same thing with a team. It's got to work for the whole system. It just can't be just for one. So you've got to take that canopy of consciousness into account. This is the critical difference between a goal and an outcome. That it's self-initiated and it's self-maintained. Many of us, particularly those of us who've worked in the corporate world, always talk about goals. Everybody's got goals, okay? And goals always require somebody else or some other resource that you can't maintain, the self-initiated and maintained. So that's where you want to chunk a goal down. A good example of that is somebody says, I'm taking this in a corporate sense, I want to earn $100,000 or $10,000 a month. Well, what is that going to require? You want to chunk it down. And many times the ecology, as you run the ecology on that, you realize that in order to do that, I've got to close, let's hypothetically say 10 deals of $1,000 a piece. Well, in order to close 10 deals of $1,000 a piece, how many people do you have to get in front of? Well, let's see, I've got a closing ratio of 5 to 1, so I need to get in front of 50 people. Well, in order to get in front of 50 people, how many people do you need to call? Well, say you've got a 10 to 1 ratio there. I got to call 500 people. Now that's an outcome that you can control. Okay? So if you know all, and that's basically what have I done? I've unpacked the strategy of earning $10,000 a month. I've taken the big 10,000 and I've chunked it on down. You can control that outcome of $500 or 500 calls, in a month's time. That's something you can control. That can be self-initiated and self-maintained. Okay. Again, the context of the outcome. For example, my language strategy doesn't necessarily mean that's a good strategy to learn how to play golf. Might be, might not. I don't know. Look at the resources that are required in order for you, and particularly if you want to arrive at a particular given state, what resources are you going to need? Do you need to be, in a quiet room? Do you need to be, do you need to have access to water for yourself and for your client? Whatever. Do you need to shut off the phones? Et cetera, et cetera. Okay? And then how are you going to know? And this is critical for the states, particularly in elicitation. How are you going to know that you're in an optimum, maximum state for elicitation? What signals are you going to have for yourself? The internal signals. And I think it was Carl that made a point the other night when we were talking in the coaches meeting. Remember in the movie The Matrix, particularly after The Matrix, there's a number of scenes that are photographed with still cameras. And they actually, what they do is they have, I don't know how many still cameras pointed at different angles, and they do a whole circle. It's a series of shots. And that's basically what you want to do. I think it's a great metaphor for being able to take a snapshot of your state and make it multidimensional. Not only do you want to take a visual of it, you want to take a kinesthetic, and you want to take a sound, but you want to do it in a surround sense. So you want to take a complete picture of the evidence that you're going to need to know that you're in that state. The evidence procedure.
Yes. Wouldn't it be also to know how I am getting closer to my outcome?
The pathway? Sure. I mean, you know, for example, if for example, a totally focused state, particularly in your case, you've been through the genius pattern a number of times. You know when you've got that maximum genius pattern. You know the stages that you physiologically, mentally, hearing-wise, you go through to get to that state. So you will know the pathway. But what you really want to know is when I'm in optimum shape, when I'm right there, what do I notice? What do I hear? What do I see? What do I feel? In the case of a state elicitation. But the basic format works for anything you do in life. I mean, and I use this constantly with my clients, both health and when I'm coaching them in other areas.
Because this well-formed outcome, I use it in coaching, for coaching a salesman. And then, in 1 week, 2 weeks, what would you have to see, to hear, for knowing that you are getting closer to your goal?
Right.
Things like that.
Well, what I do, I use this and I lay over it the SCORE model, which you as all practitioners are all familiar with. I lay the two of them on top of each other. And then the other thing that I always add to this is the Cartesian coordinates, which I went over in the Practioner. But is a great vetting and testing mechanism for a well-formed outcome. Any other questions? Thomas.
Making it compelling, is that thoughts, motivation that you work on there for the client?
Yeah. Thanks, Tony. And now I think I can do it again. One of the things that I found about motivation is that you've got a current state. This will be the current state right here, and this will be the desired state. And what you want to do is you want to get the maximum amount of tension you can get between that, because that's what motivates you. So when you anchor that desired state, you want to make sure that it's well formed, because if it's not, guess what happens? It goes back to the current state. But if it's well anchored, you head towards the desired state. Thanks for the question. Any other questions? So pick a partner. And
just walk
create,
each other.
walk each other through this.
Pick out one of your states, the number one state you want out of your list. Pick that number one state out, and walk your partner through the well-formed outcome model, and then reverse.
Yep. And your role is really going to be to be the meta to theirs. Let them elicit it. Let them know it, and just make sure.
Okay. What happened when you ran your state to the well-formed outcome model? What happened to your state? Okay. Tim. Okay. I want to know what happened to your state.
It intensified.
It intensified. Great. That means it's for you. Same thing for you. It intensified. Russ.
Yeah, it solidified it.
It solidified. Yeah, that's what we want. That's what we want. Great. Great. Fantastic. Tim.
I would like to share that when I started to put these into my work as a speech coach about 3 years ago, my results changed dramatically. There are too many people in teaching and coaching roles who assume the outcome. I have one way of treating this problem. I have a cookbook approach, and I assume that when this person comes in for my assistance, that's their outcome, and I always do the same thing with each person. So if they don't get it, it's theirs. But when I started getting their outcome, I also got leverage for change. Right. And I like to ask people, what would happen if you didn't get it? But
Cartesian model. Yeah. Cartesian model it's not in here, but it's in your meta NLP. That's a great question.
Yeah, because once you've got their outcome, particularly if you're working in a therapeutic context or even in a coaching context, you'll know at the end of the session whether you got it or not. And it's nothing wrong with not getting it. There's nothing, it's great if you get it. It's great if you don't, but at least you know where you stand. It's what I was sharing with somebody the other night about specific measurable results. That's what I work with. And a specific measurable result is really an outcome.
Okay. What we'd like to do now is I'm going to bring Alan up here, and Stephen and I are going to set it. And Alan took the meta NLP through a tremendous exercise of excellence. So what we want to do is take this state and run it through the circle of excellence model. Now, if you think you've got this state really, really anchored in, and you'd like to run another one of your states through the circle of excellence, then you may do that. You may do that. We want to run the state through the circle of excellence model, and that's on page 20.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to have you pick that state. So you can use the state you've already got, or you can use another one you want to really strengthen and have access to. And the circle of excellence, what we're going to put in it today is just the beginning. Because as some of you know, you can continue to add goodies to this circle of excellence. So it gets more and more powerful. And it's very, very flexible, so you can fold it up afterwards, you can put it in your pocket. Take it with you wherever you go. It doesn't take up much room at all. So I'll just take you quickly through what I'm going to do. You're going to identify an excellent state. And you're going to do it as a group. So you're going to stand up when we do it. You're going to have space in front of you for this circle. Okay, so you're going to spread out throughout the room. You're going to imagine that circle on the floor. Now, first thing you're going to do, you're going to give this resource, this state, a color. And you're going to pour that color into that circle. And then you're going to allow that color to develop an incredible richness. It's going to have a texture. Okay? So it's going to be rich. It's going to have a wonderful texture to it too. Then you're going to, from your meta position outside the circle, you're going to access a time when you had that state available to you, when you experienced it fully and completely. If you don't have that access available, then you're going to model someone who does. You're going to take someone who typifies that state, and you're going to take it on yourself. And then you're going to get fully into that state. You're going to take on the physiology of that state. Okay? And then you're going to, basically see what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel what you felt. Then you're going to intensify it. You're going to crank that state up. When you got it fully and completely, you're going to load it into that circle. Just going to take all of that energy and put it into that circle along with your colors. And then you're going to step into it. And you're going to immerse yourself in it. You're going to breathe it into every cell in your body. And you're going to continue to intensify it, to turn it up, to make it brighter, louder. Every cell in your body is going to be taking in this resource. And you're going to allow that to go from a circle, when you step into it, to become a sphere. It's going to surround you. You'll be fully encompassed in it. And you'll know that you have this state accessible whenever you need it. And then we're going to future pace it. You're going to imagine yourself in the future with this state fully available to you, stepping into it, and all these different times in your future you're going to need it. And how different it will be with this state available to you. And then we're going to test. You're going to break state, you're going to step out of the circle, shake it off, do a state interrupt, and then step back into it and experience it again. Okay? And this is just the beginning, like I said. You guys have already got one. You can take your one that you have and just load that sucker up. I mean, I've got mine. I've got golden color for confidence. I got silver. I've got blues. I got diamond flecks in it. So when I step into that, it just swirls throughout my entire being. Any questions? Pick a place and lay down your circle, and I will lead you through it as a group. Okay, so has everyone got that state they want? Use that state that you've just built, or pick your next best state. Okay, so get the circle in front of you. Okay, now, pick a color that will symbolize that state for you. And allow that circle to fill with that color. And allow that color to become richer. Allow it to have substance. And give it a texture, whether it be a texture of velvet. Okay? Give it whatever texture works best for you. And this circle doesn't have to be flat and two-dimensional. Allow those colors to have 3 dimensions. Allow them to fill up that circle with their richness. Make it look really inviting. Next, from your meta position, I want you to think of a time when you experienced this state fully and completely. As you recall that instance, let the circle fill up with those qualities. The qualities that you want to have available to you now and into your future. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? How are you holding your body when you experience a state? Take on the physiology of that state. Breathe as you would in this state. Set your facial muscles, your eyes as you would in this state. Take it on fully and completely. And intensify this state so that you can anchor it fully and completely into your neurology. Seeing yourself possessing all of these qualities and resources, step into the circle and breathe them in fully. Hear what you say to yourself. Notice how you feel as you draw those colors into you. Seeing what you see, hearing what you hear, and feeling what you feel. And turn up the intensity, allowing this state to permeate every cell in your being so that you're vibrating with this state, that you can barely contain this state. Experience your thoughts and feelings fully. Know that this is your state. It's available to you anytime you need it or want it. And allow this intensity to anchor it throughout your entire neurology. And allow this to become a sphere, a bubble, a container to hold the state within. As you continue to experience this circle, this sphere, see, hear, and feel yourself performing in the days and weeks to come. Scenario after scenario. See yourself using this state as you move it out into the world. Notice when and where you will want to use this. And when you're ready, step out of your circle, out of your sphere. Well, give it back to you momentarily. Now consider what you want for lunch. Oh, hang on. We're not quite done. Because now we want to step back in and make sure it's there. Now step back into your circle. Have you got it? Is it yours? Are you going to build on this in the days and weeks to come? And when you're ready, step out of the circle, fold it neatly up and put it in your pocket. and retake your seats. Well, you could just wear it. Yep, quick debrief. Any comments? Observations? Microphone, please.
Oh, we want a microphone? I'm sorry, I was in some kind of state.
Jim, you keep going into
I did creativity.
Yes,
and
sir.
I first just picked out a color, and then it came to me, I put it in a kaleidoscope, because it's always
Excellent.
changing.
Excellent, Ashley. Very good. Oh, Ashley said he started with one color and he was doing creativity, so then he decided to make it a kaleidoscope because creativity has a lot of different colors. Any other comments? What did someone else experience here? Linda, you didn't want to let it go.
I thought that it was actually really cruel because I don't
What was
understand
cruel?
why
What
you would
specifically?
Got irritated, Michael. Now you're getting on this. You got to watch her, Alan. She thinks she's getting you.
Now, how come I would step in that circle and I absolutely loved it, and then twice I have to step back out? I would like to just kind of stay there.
Yeah, we had to make sure it worked, because you might forget about it one time and you need to
learn
be able to
through
get it
practice.
back.
It doesn't do a lot of good in my pocket, though.
Oh, you can take that out anytime.
But, hey, would you want to be in that state permanently?
No, probably not.
Oh,
All right.
Just checking. Anybody else? Larry.
Yeah, when you said give it a texture, I imagined Caribbean Ocean. And,
That texture just adds a
You
little
fired
something
some
to it.
anchors here.
I can feel the wave coming over me now.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Very good. Thank you, Al. Give Alan a hand. Yeah. Omar came up to me earlier and asked a question that maybe others need clarifying. Sometimes when you develop a new model, you get so excited about it that you emphasize it and forget about some of the other important stuff, so we may have done that. Omar asked the question that in strategy elicitation and modeling excellence, is the representational system important? And we hear so much about metastates, and this may be going across the hall, and he may come in with a double barrel and get me, shotgun. Yeah. No. Omar had thought we had taught earlier. He's been in Florida the last 2 years, I believe. Yeah. That rep system, and of course the qualities of the rep system, or what's called submodalities, were not important. They are extremely important. So it's not either submodalities or metastates. It's both. And the example I gave him was just last night. I was working with one of our participants who had had a breakup with a girlfriend 2 years ago, and she kept popping up right here. Well, the relationship's over. She's got another boyfriend. Mercy. She's got another boyfriend and going on with her life, and he wants to do the same, but every time he thinks about it, he says she comes here. So that's kind of important information for the modeler to know. The girlfriend's coming up here. And I talked with him a while, and I said, have there been people in your life? Has there been people in your life that meant a lot to you, and you were very close to them? But later on, the years passed by, and you're not around them, but they still mean a lot to you. He said, he named someone. I said, that's great. Where do you see that person? Oh, he's way over there. So, guess what my outcome was on the girlfriend popping up here? Yeah. Yeah, so we did some talking, mind lines primarily, and some metastate structuring. And the lady that was popping up here was now over here. Omar.
If maybe you would say to this person of last night, change this submodality or change the color and change the distance.
I didn't do it that way.
That's what my question.
I didn't do it that way. We're fixing to cover why.
Wait, what?
I didn't do it that way, but we're fixing to cover why I didn't do it that way.
That in English because the meta levels, I know that, and you'll soon learn exactly why.
I mean, that's my question. If we have meta levels, maybe we don't use some modalities the way it used to be.
No.
That was exactly my question.
Only rarely, and I'll tell you when. Where that's the whole purpose of, we're just going to get into it for the rest of the day. Okay. For most of the rest of the day, we're going to answer that question, which is a very good question. A very good question. Okay. Let's look at the bullets up there on top of page 183. What are submodalities? Are submodalities actually a lower logical level than representational systems? Many of you already know the answer to that. Does the difference that makes a difference really refer to submodalities, as is mentioned in earlier NLP literature, and in fact we erroneously have in our first book, Timelining? What's one thing about publishing a book? When you blow it, you can't call it back. It's still out there. So those of you who bought Timelining, you will read in there where we actually state that the difference that makes the difference is in submodalities. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. It's not. Would Bateson have approved that usage of his phrase? Bateson is the one who came up with the phrase, the difference that makes the difference, in Steps on the Ecology of Mind. Why don't submodality mapping across and shifting always work? In meta-NLP, we've already covered this, but we're going to go into it deeper. We're going to go into it much further. What mechanisms actually explain how submodalities work? These are some of the questions, Omar, that we're going to be dealing with for the rest of the day. And we will be doing a submodality pattern where we will actually do somewhat of a submodality mapping across, but it's not exactly that, but it's very close. Soon after lunch, we'll be doing that. Some of them work, some of them don't. So when you leave here, in fact, when you leave here today, I hope you'll know which ones works and which one don't, and how to know. How to know. Very simply, if I had taken that image of his old girlfriend and had him just over there, it may have worked, it may not have worked. What would have determined if it had worked or not worked? That's what we're going to answer the questions about now. Okay. All right. Page 184. Submodalities, as the qualities that distinguish the modalities, give our brain specific distinctions for how to feel and respond. Because submodality qualities, and see, by the way, you just used one. That was a submodality quality, your visual. You just used a submodality to anchor in your state and to build up your circle of excellence. That's a submodality pattern. But see, it's the quality of that submodality that you put out there, and obviously the meaning that you give it. And there's where the secret is at, as we've learned. The meaning you give that. Somebody else may put a different meaning. Larry mentioned the Caribbean. I can't imagine other people not having similar meanings to it, but I'm sure there are. In fact, I got an email this week from a guy in Haiti who has a school down there that I have a group of people who assist him. He's got a school of 850 kids. And it's close to the Caribbean. It's 700 miles from Miami. But it's in the Caribbean. And it's the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere. So to those people, you mention Caribbean, it means something else. If you mention the Caribbean what? The Caribbean Ocean means something else. Totally different. Totally different. It's the meaning we give it. The meaning we give it. Okay, we sort our experiences symbolically with submodalities as frames. Notice the indent under qualities and distinctions of representations. Anybody here not had a lot of experience with what we call submodalities? I'm assuming everybody's had practitioner training and fairly knowledgeable of them. Obviously, we know the difference between past, present, and future with submodality. Between what's real and what's imagined. If you would, I'll just pause right now. We did it earlier, let's do it again. I want you to get an image of something that's real in your life. That's very, very real. Just notice where you see it. Very real. And after you do that, get an image of something imagined. How do you know the difference of what's real in your life and what's imagined? Someone raise your hand and let us know. Ed. Oh, hold on there.
Well, the picture is clearer.
For what's
real.
For what's real. It's clearer?
Yeah.
And where do you see it?
Well, in this particular case, I saw it down there.
Down there. Probably context dependent.
Yeah,
but
context dependent.
Where was the imagined one? Now notice you say
somewhere around here. Very fuzzy.
Very fuzzy. It's not clear. It's fuzzy. So I assume it's not in focus.
Right. And it's up here somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Let's look. Excuse me. How bright is that compared to that? What's real? Which is the brightest?
The real one is brighter.
Brighter. Okay.
But not as much as it is clearer.
Yeah. So we have found out that Ed, one of the major way he distinguishes real from imagined is imagined pictures are fuzzy, not in focus. You see any other thing that make it stand out? Now he's right now is doing what we call contrastive analysis, as he is comparing one image with another image and checking the qualities or the submodalities of both. That's called contrastive analysis.
Is that more of a timeline issue, or is that more of there's feelings that are associated with it?
I don't really know. It's context.
I'll tell you why it was down there.
Mike.
And are you right-handed?
The reason it was down here is because it's my cat, and that's where he usually is.
Okay.
And yes, I am right-handed.
Okay. Anybody else? Real and imagined? Hector.
Well, in my case, the real thing had certain texture. I mean,
texture,
like weight.
Weight. So it's a kinesthetic.
Yes, and the other one was kind of fuzzy also, but was kind of lighter, like flying, something like that.
Flying, lighter and flying away. That's the one that was imagined. Yeah, but the real one had weight.
I even can feel it.
You got a picture there?
Yes.
He said, I can even feel it.
I can even feel it.
Yeah. So he's representing real, both visual and kinesthetic. Does that real have any sounds to it? That's it. It's got sound? That's great. Let's see the difference. Yeah, the real one has a sound.
Yes, because I was thinking about my laptop.
Your laptop?
Yes, and it had weight and texture. I can even feel it. And when I was thinking about the image, imagined thing was kind of an unicorn.
Unicorn?
Yes, it wasn't flying.
They're not really real.
Yes, but it was kind of a...
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now what we're doing is just kind of re-cueing your NLP prac stuff, where you started going inside. Okay, Dave.
Yes, I did this twice, and the first time I did it, my realistic desk computer office was right here in the middle. And then I imagined a balloon, and that went over here. Then I did it again, and I thought about my car, which is very real. And it was here, and then I says, well, I'm going to paint a picture, which is going to come strictly from my imagination. And I painted it over here.
Paint over here.
So I seem to be putting them all over.
All over the place. So but what really distinguishes real from unreal? If you could pick one quality there, what really distinguishes? A major.
I don't know. That was the reason.
Yeah, okay, let's look at it again now. So where's real?
The first time real was right here.
Yeah.
In the office, and it's clear. And
very clear.
Yeah.
And then what did you get imagined?
I imagined a balloon with several colors, and it was rising up. It was over here. It was nice and clear too.
Rising up, nice and clear, but different location?
Different location here.
Yeah, and what else do you notice different?
Well, there's kind of a frame around the office because it's in a room.
Kind of a frame around it. So
but that may be because it's in a room.
Okay, get something else that's real that doesn't, like a landscape or a scene from here.
My car is right here.
That's right there, kind of. So he put a frame around his fingers. By the way, in modeling, see, my car is right here. We just talked about the room being framed. He says it's framed, and I said get something else that's real, and he said my car is right here, and he did that. So that let me know that in all likelihood that's framed too. Okay, so he's framing real. And these two contexts. Now, by the way, all meaning is context dependent. You get different contexts, just like Ed with the cat. I said, Ed, think of your laptop computer that you brought with you. Where do you see it? Here. Right here. It's still down, but it's on his lap. Notice. No, it's actually on his head. And I found out from working with Ed that he sorts by location a lot. That would be called that's a kind of a driver in your brain. So okay. Yeah, thank you, Dave. I would think framing and how you frame it and the location. Those were very close together. Yeah. By the way, location, yeah, okay. Kim. Do you go Kimberly or Kim? Kimberly. Okay, Kimberly.
I was wondering, with Mr. David, isn't he having a hard time possibly because balloon is real as well as his car is real? Are both of those real?
Him. She said there are balloons real. There are such thing as balloons, but we said imagination. You were just imagining some balloons. We're talking about imagination and reality here. Yeah, his car, his own car. Show it.
The two real things. The office was here.
Yeah.
Well, as I looked at that and think about it now, well, my car is over here in the parking lot.
Okay, so you're kind of doing a little Ed stuff.
Now, I had a real good image of a balloon.
So you just created that image.
Yeah,
it's imagined.
I've seen a lot of them and with colors, but when I decided to paint a picture over here, it was fuzzy.
It was fuzzy. Have you ever painted a picture of a balloon before?
No, but I painted a lot of abstract paintings.
So that's a good point, Kimberly. So that is a better example of imagination than a balloon because you've seen it before.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good point. Good point, Kimberly. Yeah, okay.
Also, one of the things about Ed that I've noticed is he's very literal. He puts things where they belong in his world.
Boy, you just matched his word. Yeah. Hey, now you're watching modeling. You're watching modeling in action. Okay, so pay attention.
Well, I'm seeing a distinction in your submodality. It seems that something that's real is more or less centered in front of you, and if it's imaginary, it's off to the sides more.
Now get something else that's imaginary. Imagine the sun coming up in the west tomorrow. Oh, here? Give him mine. How's it look?
Kind of fuzzy, like
fuzzy,
abstract
yeah.
painting I was going to do, yeah.
Fuzzy, yeah.
But I watch the sun come up every morning out the window.
It's over here?
Over here, but that's where it physically is.
That's where it physically is.
And I got a clear picture of that.
It's clear.
Because I've seen it, and I like to watch that.
Yeah.
But the one over here in the west that I made up, that's fuzzy.
That's fuzzy. You really believe the sun's going to come up in the east tomorrow, don't you?
Yeah, it's the third notch over in that
third notch over? Yeah. You really believe it, okay. So, what about the sun coming up in the west tomorrow? You believe that?
That's kind of a thought. That's
now I'm fixing to jump ahead just a little bit. This is a perfect setup. So if you come over here and got this fuzzy sun coming up in the west, and if you put it over there where the sun comes up in the east, would you believe that the sun comes up in the west?
Oh, no.
We'll hold that. That was a perfect setup for what I'm fixing to go to. Yeah, okay. Thank you, David. Kimberly, yeah. Okay. Now then, what's important and what's not important. And we're fixing to do a pattern after lunch on this, so if you would, kind of get an image of something that's very important to you and something that's absolutely not important. Something that's important is the value. Something that you highly value and something that you don't value. And where do you get those? Something that... Jim, need microphone a minute. Get a visual of it. Get a visual of something that's very important and something that's not important.